The NBA Cup is a success. The reason it's a win is because players genuinely care about the outcome of these games. We see this come through with increased intensity and increased competitiveness that really rivals that of playoff games. And the NBA desperately needed this. They need players to care about playing basketball games. And at least for this spike in early December, players care about winning these games and advancing in the NBA Cup. Here I have the Thunder versus Spurs 1-1 matchup. This was a great game. I mean, this is where basketball is back. This felt like the 90s. But even outside of this game, we saw teams playing more competitive basketball. That's what's needed. It doesn't always have to be a close game, but we need to see players going at each other. That competition is what fuels entertainment. That competition is what brings people to watch live TV. That is what the NBA needs. And we can see now that the Cup has really carved out its own niche, that it's a cool intra-season competition, and it's not being compared to the playoffs or the championship. It's understood that this is its own entity. This is its own competition and shouldn't be compared to the playoffs. Obviously, this is not anywhere close to winning the championship. It's just the NBA Cup, and that's what's good, is that this is its own thing. And so there's something else for players to care about. Not that they should need an intra-season competition to care about playing in these games, but it's good to see that this fuels more competition and hopefully causes the competition, the intensity to burn beyond just the NBA Cup to where we get out of these doldrum NBA games where the players just are disinterested. So this is a definite win. It was a great idea, and I didn't think it would be. I thought this was too gimmicky, something that they were just throwing in. It didn't. I'm still not quite clear on how everything works, but what is clear is that when we get to the semifinals, it really starts to draw interest and the teams really care about winning. And let's look at actually how much they win. So the cup for when you win the prize, when you win the NBA Cup, every player on the team gets $530,000, and then the runners up get $212,000, and then we see the semifinalists 106,000, the quarterfinalists $53,000, and that counts a lot. The players really care about this money, and I think the richer players care about their teammates who are at the end of the bench, who are on minimum contracts. They really care about them getting the extra money. So it's really helpful. I think this says I don't like the idea of the players needing more money to stoke their interest, but it's working, and that's a great thing if you're in the NBA, because for so long the NBA has had a problem with players caring. Now players care more, at least for a spike in the season, and so this is a huge win. And now we've got two dividers. We've got the All-Star game, and that can carry us through an entire season. Now, obviously, the All-Star game is something different, but what I like to see and what is happening, and I think it's not just the NBA Cup. What I really like seeing is the players caring more. And I think we're seeing this with the newer generation. So I think what was bad was with the LeBron James generation, everyone got too friendly, and it wasn't an all out. There weren't all out competitions. It was more just being on good terms, playing basketball. Maybe in the playoffs things got more heated, but genuine dislike, genuine competition, even hate is really good for the NBA because it makes for entertaining television, but it also makes for really good sporting events where you have two teams going against one another and they genuinely dislike each other. And I think that we're seeing this come through with this newer generation. And so but Luca, I wouldn't consider the newer generation. He's more like the current generation. But Luca has this. Luca has ultra competitiveness. We know that Victor Wembanyama does. And the more players going head to head, it brings us back to the 90s, which really to me were the pinnacle of basketball, where we had so much dislike, so much of teams not being able to stand each other, and then even so much hate that it really fueled the NBA to new peaks of entertainment where we saw so many teams going up against each other, and there would be some rivals, but it didn't even have to be a rival team. There could just be so many different matchups where the teams had genuine they genuinely wanted to beat that other team. And I think that's what's been missing from the NBA for so long. And so I think the NBA Cup is helping bring this forward. But I also think this newer generation is really assisting with that and driving in better basketball. That's what we see. And that's what we've been missing. We've been missing for so long where we had just bitter rivals and matchups where they truly disliked each other. We see this with Victor and Chet. Victor clearly doesn't like Chet Holmgren, and I think there's some past history there, but he clearly wants to get the better of this matchup, and that's all that we need. We need to see two players going head to head, and we need to see it on several teams, and I think that's what's unfolding. The more parity there is, the better it will be. Of course, OKC is standing very much in front of everyone else, but this Spurs Thunder matchup was a great start, and it's good to see the Thunder getting challenged. But if it's the NBA is not going to have they're only going to be able to have so many teams that are actually competitive, that are actually contenders, and then from there we're going to see pretenders. So maybe the Knicks are a fringe contender because they're in the East. They're very likely to advance to the finals. Once you're in the finals, anything can happen. So maybe the Knicks are a fringe contender, but in the West, really, I would say the Nuggets are a fringe contender, and then the Spurs maybe a fringe contender, and then you have the OKC, who is obviously the dominant force, the reigning champions. They're the number one contender, right? They are the most likely to win the championship, and then you have some pretenders like the Los Angeles Lakers. And as far as fringe contenders, we could also throw the Rockets in there. But it's good to see more teams being competitive, and then just more of the ability for any team to win on any given night. That's really going to help. But I wanted to draw attention to this because I think it's something that the NBA has done right. The NBA has got a lot wrong, but the NBA Cup is a definite win, and I think this is really going to help going forward. And I think what helps the NBA Cup is now we're out from the comparisons, because when it initially was announced and you saw that someone could win this intra-season competition, you immediately think to, well, it's not the NBA Finals, it's not the NBA championship, so what's the point? And now it's clearly distinguished on its own. And I think that helps so much because now we're not looking at the NBA Cup as anything comparatively. We're just looking at it for what it is. And for what it is, it really is it brings a spike in interest and a spike of competition early on in the season. And then so early in December, we have this cup to really fuel competition. We have the Christmas games, which are again like a really a those are marquee games that everyone is watching. And then from once we get to a turning point in the season where we start to look forward to the playoffs, we have February, March, and then April. And so we have competition just on trying to advance and get better seeding in the playoffs. So this Spurs OKC game though was, I think, a milestone game. This was a game where I was, so to speak, on the edge of my seat. I could not. I was watching this game and I wasn't even watching it on playback. I was interested enough to actually watch this game live and go ahead and sit through the channels. Of course, I was on my computer during the commercials, but the point is that I actually watched this live. Previously, I've just been watching the games on a delay and then just fast forwarding through everything else. This game was supremely entertaining, and I obviously hear these two teams just going head to head was much must watch TV. But I think we'll see more of this throughout the league, and that's really what's needed. Even the Lakers and the Suns, they have their own rivalry brewing because of Dylan Brooks. I think Dylan Brooks is excellent for the league. Yes, he's getting into, he's playing the role of, I wouldn't say just agitator. He's doing more than just agitating, but he is creating friction, right? Like he's going directly at LeBron James, and that is needed. We haven't seen anybody go at LeBron James for so long, and that was needed when LeBron was in his prime. We saw so many players just acquiesce, and I thought Dylan Brooks said it. I thought he made a great point the other day. He said something like everybody bows down to LeBron and I won't, and he doesn't like that. And I thought that was great. That's what is needed. We need players to go at one another, to be diametrically opposed, because when you have that, you have entertaining TV, and this cup brings out that type of competition amongst the teams. So it's good to see. And I noticed at the end of the OKC game, Victor Wembanyama was not going to shake hands and greet the other players. I really like that. I think that needs to come back. The genuine dislike, the genuine disdain, the more of that, the better. It's more compelling TV. Also, bringing back the fights. I know Mike Breen is a Boy Scout, and anytime that players get in a skirmish, then it's reprehensible. No, it's not reprehensible. It's just competitiveness. It's players going at one another. This is a very physical game. And when that happens, inevitably, there's going to be a skirmish, there's going to be fights, and that is entertaining, right? It's helpful for the NBA when you see competition boiling over to the point that players at times will be in an altercation. That's a good thing. That's really helpful for the league. And what can spur that is when you have two teams that are going after the same thing. They both believe that they can win. They both want to win. They desperately want to win. When that happens, you see really good TV. And I think the NBA Cup has at least brought that out early in the season for a few games on the schedule. And then once you have it brought out, maybe it continues, right? Maybe it continues. And the more teams it continues for, the better it will be. So NBA Cup, definite win. The Thunder, not the Thunder, the Spurs and the Knicks play tomorrow. It's its own thing during the season, and it works.